Welcome to your personalized deep dive.
Oh, cool.
Today we're tackling procrastination.
Oh, okay.
We're going deep with Darius Foroux.
Oh, yeah, his stuff is great.
He's all about practical strategies for conquering procrastination.
Yeah.
And actually achieving meaningful things.
Foroux doesn't just scratch the surface with tips and tricks.
Right.
He really gets into the psychology behind why we procrastinate.
Exactly. He starts with this idea that procrastination is about avoiding tasks that feel difficult or uncomfortable. And what's interesting is he uses his own early career as an example.
Oh, interesting.
He talks about how he relied on freelancing and even took a regular job to dodge the real challenge
Wow.
of building his own business.
It's fascinating how we convince ourselves we're busy and productive when really we're just masters of avoidance.
Right.
Foroux even compares it to addiction, like using busyness to numb ourselves from facing what truly matters.
It's like we're running from something instead of running towards something.
Yeah.
Then he talks about how he shifted from this passive state to an active mindset.
Absolutely crucial for getting things done.
So how did he make that shift?
Foroux identifies 3 key areas that were foundational.
Okay.
First, he focused on mental toughness, delving into stoicism, pragmatism, and mindfulness
Wow.
to really gain control over his thoughts and build resilience.
So it's almost like he's training his brain like an athlete would train their body.
Exactly. And along with this mental training, he prioritized daily physical exercise.
Makes sense.
Not just for the physical benefits, but because he believes it boosts energy focus and even confidence.
I can see that then he adds a layer of daily habits on top of that foundation.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what were some of the habits he incorporated?
He talks about journaling, consistent reading, prioritizing tasks, being mindful about information consumption, and nurturing social connections. It's a holistic approach to managing energy and attention.
It seems like these habits create a framework that supports consistent action,
Definitely.
even when motivation might be low.
Yeah.
He also talks about using the phrase,
Oh, yeah.
let's go, as a personal mantra to shift into action mode.
I love that.
I wonder if having a go-to phrase like that could help break through those moments of inertia.
It's like a mental trigger to interrupt that procrastination loop
Yeah,
and inject some energy into the process.
I like that.
It could be interesting to explore what words or phrases resonate with you and have that power to kickstart action.
I love that he then gets into this idea of elimination,
Oh, yeah.
which is incredibly powerful.
Is.
Foroux believes in simplifying life to really hone in on what matters.
It's about being intentional with your energy and focus. Foroux gives a great example from his own life.
Okay.
He was tempted to start creating YouTube videos,
Uh-huh.
but realized the time and energy it would require would pull him away from his true passion, which is writing.
So it's not just about adding things, it's also about being willing to let go of things
Exactly.
that aren't truly serving you, even if they seem promising. What are some ways you've incorporated this idea of elimination into your own life?
For me, it's about constantly evaluating my commitments and asking myself, is this truly essential? Is this moving me closer to what I want to achieve?
Right.
If the answer is no, it's time to let it go.
I like that.
This frees up space, both mental and physical, for the things that truly matter.
That's a great point, and it really resonates with this idea of being mindful of our energy.
Yeah.
Foroux then dives into strategies for actually overcoming procrastination, but he believes willpower alone just isn't enough.
Willpower is so overrated.
He's a big advocate for building systems to support consistent productivity.
Relying solely on willpower is setting yourself up for failure because it's a limited resource that fluctuates throughout the day.
It does.
Systems, however, provide a framework that can keep you moving forward,
Right.
even when willpower is low.
What are some of the specific tactics he suggests for building those systems?
He emphasizes self-imposed deadlines to create urgency and accountability systems like partnering with a friend or working with a coach. He also advocates for techniques like the Pomodoro technique,
Right.
where you work in focused intervals with short breaks.
Yeah.
These breaks are key because research shows our attention spans naturally wax and wane.
That's true.
And strategically timed breaks actually enhance focus rather than detract from it.
He also mentions things like regular exercise and a healthy diet,
Yes.
which might seem unrelated, but I can see how those would impact mental clarity and stamina.
He's taking a holistic approach, recognizing that our physical and mental states are deeply interconnected.
Makes sense.
He also stresses the importance of understanding the why behind your work, that internal motivation.
Right.
Because without it, it's much harder to overcome procrastination.
Foroux also challenges the traditional concept of time management.
Oh, yeah.
He says time can't really be managed. It just keeps ticking away.
So true.
But attention, that's something we can control. What are your thoughts on this shift from time management to attention management?
Time is a finite resource constantly flowing, but our attention is something we can direct.
Mhm.
The challenge is that we live in a world where our attention is under constant assault.
He uses a great example, streaming services like Netflix and YouTube.
Uh-huh.
They're designed to keep us hooked, to keep us passively consuming.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me think about how much of my attention is being pulled in directions I don't even consciously choose.
It's about becoming aware of where your attention is going
Right?
and making intentional choices about how you use your technology.
I like that.
Foroux introduces this concept of shifting from always connected to always disconnected.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a necessary shift in today's hyper-connected world.
For me, constantly feeling like I need to be available
Yeah.
is a huge drain on my energy and focus.
He advocates for practical strategies like turning off non-essential notifications
Mhm.
and using website blocking apps to create boundaries and protect your focus.
It's about reclaiming your attention and directing it towards what matters most to you.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful reminder that we have more control over our attention than we often realize,
Yeah.
and that being intentional with our attention is key to being more productive and effective in all areas of our lives.
It's about making conscious choices about where we invest our energy and focus,
Right.
rather than being passively pulled in 1,000 different directions.
Or also challenges another common notion, the idea that we need to power through and work constantly.
We're not robots.
He actually argues that taking breaks and, real vacations can actually boost productivity
I love vacation.
and reduce stress in the long run. It seems counterintuitive, but he backs it up with research.
It makes sense. We aren't machines.
What do you think about this?
We need time to recharge, to step away from the demands of work,
Right.
and allow our minds to rest and reset.
He talks about how taking time off can reduce stress and burnout, which is a big one. But he also suggests it can improve creativity and problem solving
Interesting.
because it gives our minds the space to wander and make new connections.
I can see that.
Taking time off also provides the opportunity to reflect on your priorities and goals.
For sure.
It allows you to ask yourself, am I still aligned with what truly matters? Do I need to make any adjustments?
Powerful questions.
Then there's the simple joy of engaging in restorative activities, like reading, travel, and connecting with loved ones.
Yeah.
I know I always come back from vacation feeling more energized and ready to tackle whatever's next.
It's about replenishing your creative well and returning to work with a renewed sense of purpose and enthusiasm.
Foroux' perspective on this really resonates with me. It's a reminder that rest and rejuvenation aren't indulgences.
Definitely not.
They're essential for sustained productivity and well-being.
It's about finding that balance between pushing yourself and giving yourself permission to rest and recharge.
And that brings us to one of Foroux' core beliefs. The most effective way to beat procrastination is to engage in work you find genuinely meaningful and enjoyable.
Such a good point.
It's so refreshing to hear someone who's written so much about productivity also emphasize the importance of finding work you love.
It's about aligning your efforts with your passions.
What are your thoughts on this?
He shares his own experience describing how he struggled with procrastination in previous jobs, but found that it simply dissipated when he began doing work he loved writing.
It highlights how motivation becomes effortless when you're engaged in work that feels purposeful.
For sure.
What do you think about this in relation to your own work experiences?
It's not about forcing yourself to do things you dread.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills and interests intersect,
Yeah.
where work becomes a source of fulfillment rather than a burden.
For me, it's about remembering that feeling of flow, that sense of being completely absorbed in what you're doing.
I love that feeling.
And I think it's something we can all cultivate, even in tasks that might not be inherently thrilling.
Right.
It's about finding those elements within our work that spark our curiosity and engage our minds.
I think that's a great perspective. It's about shifting our mindset from, I have to do this, to I get to do this.
Exactly.
And even within tasks, that might not be our absolute passion.
Yeah.
There are always elements that we can find interesting or challenging.
I think a lot of people, especially in today's ever-changing world,
For sure.
can feel uncertain about their life goals and career paths.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in needing to have all the answers and the perfect plan.
But Foroux offers a reassuring perspective. He reminds us that it's perfectly okay not to have all the answers right now.
That's good to hear.
Life is a journey of exploration and discovery.
Mm.
And it's often through that exploration that we uncover our true passions and purpose.
Instead of fixating on a specific destination, he suggests focusing on developing what he calls universal skills.
I like that.
Those core abilities that will be valuable in any career path you choose.
What are some examples?
He emphasizes things like self-discipline, personal effectiveness, communication, negotiation, persuasion, even physical strength and stamina.
Wow, that's a lot.
He even mentions flexibility, which is so important in today's rapidly evolving world.
Yeah.
It's about becoming more resilient, resourceful, and adaptable.
It's about investing in your own growth and recognizing that these skills will serve you no matter where life takes you.
What are some of the universal skills you've focused on developing?
I've been putting a lot of effort into improving my communication skills,
Oh, nice.
both written and verbal.
It's amazing how being a clear and effective communicator impacts every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional success.
For sure. What about you?
I've been focusing on building my problem-solving skills and my ability to learn new things quickly.
Oh, cool.
In today's world where information is constantly changing, I think those are two of the most valuable assets you can have. It's so encouraging to know that we don't need to have it all figured out right now. We can focus on building these core skills
Yeah.
and trust that they'll guide us as we navigate our paths.
That's a great takeaway.
I think we're ready to delve into even more of Foroux's insights after we take a moment to gather our thoughts.
One thing that really stood out to me from Foroux' work is how he tackles mindless browsing.
He actually calls it a productivity killer.
Right.
But I have to admit, I'm guilty of it too.
I think we all are to some extent.
What makes it so detrimental to our focus?
Foroux argues that mindless browsing often points to a deeper issue.
Okay.
Our addiction to those dopamine hits we get from notifications and updates.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
We end up constantly chasing those little bursts of stimulation, even if they leave us feeling drained and unfulfilled.
It's like we're sacrificing our long-term well-being for these fleeting moments of distraction.
Exactly, and all those distractions make it nearly impossible to focus on anything meaningful.
So how do we break free from this cycle and reclaim our attention?
Foroux' advice is surprisingly straightforward. Eliminate browsing. Be more deliberate and intentional with technology. Turning off non-essential notifications, setting specific times for checking email, and even using website blocking apps can help create those boundaries.
It's about taking control of our digital environment rather than letting it control us.
Right.
It reminds me of this idea we talked about earlier, simplifying our lives to focus on what truly matters.
It's all connected by eliminating distractions. We create space for the things that truly nourish our minds and fuel our productivity.
Foroux also offers a bunch of other tips for boosting productivity.
Oh yeah, he's got tons of them.
Some we've touched on, but a few others really caught my eye.
Like what?
For example, he talks about the importance of getting straight to the point, cutting out unnecessary small talk or delays, and just diving into action.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that it's about being decisive and action-oriented.
I like that.
Foroux believes that momentum builds momentum. The more you act, the easier it becomes to keep taking action.
He also suggests writing down all your thoughts and ideas, whether in a notebook, a note-taking app, or even just a voice memo.
Oh, that's a good one. It's like decluttering your mind, creating space for clarity and focus.
He also talks about the importance of saying no to things that don't align with your goals or values, which can be a challenge for a lot of people.
Saying no is so important, but it can be really hard.
It's about protecting your time and energy for the things that truly matter. Sometimes saying no is the most productive thing you can do.
Absolutely.
He also suggests taking short, regular breaks throughout the day.
Oh yeah, those are essential.
Even just a few minutes to step away, stretch, move your body, and let your mind reset.
I try to do that every hour.
It seems counterintuitive, but those breaks can actually boost productivity.
They really do. Research shows that when we push ourselves to work for hours on end without breaks, our focus starts to fade and the quality of our work suffers.
That's true.
Strategic breaks help us maintain energy and concentration over the long haul.
Foroux then brings up something seemingly obvious: eliminate distraction.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done.
But in our hyper-connected world, this takes real effort.
It does. It's about designing a work environment that supports focus.
So what are some practical tips for doing that?
Turn off notifications. Put your phone on silent, close, unnecessary tabs on your computer. Anything to minimize those interruptions.
He also recommends focusing on just one task at a time, especially for complex or demanding work.
Multitasking is a myth. We often think it makes us more efficient, but research shows it actually hinders productivity.
Yeah, when we try to juggle multiple things, we end up making more mistakes and taking longer to complete each task.
Right. It makes sense when you think about how our brains are wired. We can only truly focus on one thing at a time.
Foro then suggests limiting information consumption, which is tough in the age of information overload.
It's about being mindful of the information we allow into our minds.
What are your thoughts on this?
It's so easy to get caught in a vortex of articles, videos, and social media updates, but all that input can be overwhelming and ultimately unproductive.
I know I feel that way sometimes, like my brain is overloaded.
He also talks about the power of routine for minimizing decision fatigue.
Routines are so helpful.
When we have routines for things like waking up, exercising, and working, we free up mental energy for more important decisions.
It's like streamlining your life to create more mental space for what matters most.
Exactly. He then recommends some very specific routines, like checking email only twice a day and starting your day without your phone.
I can see how limiting email checks could make a big difference. That constant influx of messages could be a huge distraction.
He also suggests planning your day the night before.
I find that incredibly helpful when I wake up knowing what I need to focus on. It's much easier to get moving and avoid that morning scramble.
It's about setting yourself up for success with a clear plan. You're less likely to waste time figuring out what to do next or get sidetracked by distractions.
Foro also suggests visualizing your day in detail, which sounds a bit unusual, but I'm curious about the benefits.
I think it's about mental rehearsal, priming your mind for success. When you visualize yourself, completing tasks, overcoming challenges, and achieving your goals, you're creating a mental blueprint for action.
I love that analogy of a mental blueprint. It's like creating a roadmap for your day, which can make it easier to stay focused and motivated.
Farah then reminds us of something we often neglect in our busy lives, getting enough sleep.
Sleep is so important, but it's often the first thing to go when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
It seems basic, but sleep deprivation can have a huge impact on our cognitive function, mood, and overall well-being.
When we're well rested, we're sharper, more focused, and more productive.
Eh,
He also recommends reading, which might seem obvious, but in the digital age, we often prioritize other forms of information consumption.
I love reading it. Expands our knowledge, stimulates our imaginations, and helps us develop critical thinking skills.
It's a valuable investment in our personal and professional growth. He suggests learning new things, whether taking a course, attending a workshop, or simply exploring a new hobby.
What are your thoughts on the importance of continuous learning?
I think it's crucial for keeping our minds sharp and engaged. It's about fostering a growth mindset, embracing challenges, and cultivating a love of learning.
I completely agree. Learning new things keeps us adaptable and open to new possibilities. Foro even recommends something that seems almost too simple to be effective. Laugh a little.
Laughter really is powerful medicine. It reduces stress, boosts our mood, and helps us keep things in perspective. He also suggests minimizing meetings, which can be tough in some work environments, but I think a lot of people would agree that many meetings are unnecessary and unproductive.
It's about being mindful of how we spend our time. If a meeting doesn't have a clear purpose or agenda, it's often more efficient to handle the matter through email or a quick call.
And finally, he reminds us to simply do the work. It's easy to get caught up in planning, strategizing, and talking about our goals, but ultimately, action creates results.
It's about putting in the effort, showing up consistently, and focusing on making progress. But I think there's more to it than simply doing the work. It's also about the quality of the work we do.
That's a great point, and that brings us to something else. Foro talks about the impact of perfectionism on productivity.
Perfectionism can be a sneaky form of procrastination.
How so?
It's the fear of making mistakes, the need to get everything just right that can paralyze us into inaction.
It's like waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal conditions which rarely materialize.
Exactly. Perfectionists often get stuck in a cycle of revising and refining, losing sight of the bigger picture and delaying progress.
Foro suggests that perfectionism can be linked to deeper issues like depression and low self-esteem.
That makes sense. It's that constant feeling of not being good enough, of never quite meeting our own impossibly high standards.
What do you think about this connection between perfectionism and deeper emotional issues?
I think it's an important connection to acknowledge perfectionism often stems from a fear of failure or a need for external validation.
So how do we find that balance between striving for excellence and letting go of the need for absolute perfection?
For advocates for embracing mistakes as opportunities for growth It's about shifting from a fear of failure to a mindset of continuous learning and improvement.
It's about recognizing that mistakes are inevitable and that they're actually valuable stepping stones on the path to mastery.
Exactly. Mistakes provide feedback. They help us refine our skills and develop resilience.
Now, this next point from Ford really surprised me. He says, we shouldn't be afraid to stay within our comfort zones.
Really? That's interesting.
It seems counterintuitive to everything we hear about growth and pushing boundaries.
It is. It's a refreshing perspective. He challenges the idea that we constantly need to be pushing ourselves outside our comfort zones to be successful.
So he's not saying we should stay stagnant, but rather that there's value in solidifying our foundation before reaching for the next challenge.
Exactly. He believes our comfort zones are where the real magic happens.
I like that.
It's about creating a solid foundation, a sense of stability and security from which we can then explore new possibilities and take calculated risks.
He argues that constantly pushing ourselves outside our comfort zones can lead to burnout and exhaustion.
It's about finding a sustainable pace, a rhythm that allows us to grow and expand without sacrificing our well-being.
It's like the idea of finding a sustainable rhythm in nature. Everything has its natural cycles of growth and rest. We could apply that same principle to our own lives.
I like that analogy. Foroux then emphasizes the importance of consistency.
Consistency is key.
He suggests that small incremental improvements repeated over time lead to significant results.
It's the power of compounding. Just like a small amount of money invested regularly can grow exponentially over time, so too can small, consistent efforts lead to remarkable achievements.
Exactly. He suggests we aim to improve by just 0.1% each day. It seems like a tiny amount, but those gains accumulate over time and create momentum.
It's a powerful reminder that big changes happen through small, consistent actions. It's about focusing on those small wins and trusting the process.
He also advises us to leave work at work to create a clear separation between our professional and personal lives.
I struggle with that sometimes.
It's about setting boundaries and creating space for rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation. When we allow ourselves time to truly disconnect from work, we return feeling refreshed and more focused.
He even encourages us to live like we're immortal, which sounds a bit paradoxical, but I think I understand what he's getting at.
What do you think he means?
I think it's about embracing the long game, focusing on building a life of meaning and purpose, rather than getting caught up in short-term gratification or fleeting trends.
It's about recognizing that our choices today have ripple effects that extend far into the future.
Exactly. When we adopt this perspective, we're more likely to invest in things that truly matter: our health, our relationships, our personal growth. It's about making choices that are aligned with our values and contribute to our long-term well-being.
Fora also encourages us to consider how we measure our lives.
It's easy to get caught up in external measures of success, income, status, possessions.
Yeah. But true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with what truly matters to us. He suggests that we focus on things like the quality of our relationships, our energy levels, and our sense of purpose.
It's about defining success on our own terms, creating a life that feels meaningful and aligned with our values.
This resonates deeply with me. It's a reminder that true success is about living a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, regardless of external measures of achievement. Foroux even challenges us to think about what we would do if we knew we couldn't fail.
What a powerful question.
It forces us to confront our fears and limiting beliefs. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
I think I would write more. I would share my ideas and stories more freely without worrying about judgment or rejection.
That's a beautiful aspiration, and it speaks to the power of embracing our passions and letting go of those fears that hold us back. What about you? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? If I knew I couldn't fail, I would dedicate more time to exploring my creative interests, things like painting and music, which I've always loved but haven't fully pursued.
It's amazing how this one question can spark such profound reflections and ignite a sense of possibility.
It's a reminder that we all have dreams and aspirations within us and that it's never too late to pursue them. Foroux then reminds us that we only get one life, and it's up to us to make the most of it.
It's a powerful call to action, but I think it's also a message of empowerment. We have the power to shape our own destinies, to create lives filled with meaning and purpose.
It's about making conscious choices, taking ownership of our lives, and embracing the journey with all its challenges and triumphs.
I think this deep dive has already offered so many powerful insights and practical strategies for overcoming procrastination, enhancing focus, and ultimately creating a more fulfilling and productive life.
It's a reminder that we have the power to choose where we direct our attention, how we manage our time, and what we prioritize, but the journey doesn't end here.
Right.
There's always more to explore, more to discover, and more to create.
I'm excited to continue this exploration as we delve into the final part of Foroux's insights after a brief pause to gather our thoughts. It's amazing how even small shifts in perspective can have such a profound impact on how we approach our work and our lives. It makes me think about all the things we've discussed so far, from the importance of understanding the roots of procrastination to the power of finding meaningful work. And as we move into this final part of our deep dive into Darius Foroux' insights, I'm curious to see what other gems we uncover.
Foroux also talks about the importance of being kind to yourself, especially when you make mistakes.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in self-criticism, especially when we're striving for excellence. But I can see how that kind of negative self-talk can be counterproductive.
He suggests that we treat ourselves with the same compassion and understanding that we would offer a friend or loved one.
It's about cultivating a sense of self-acceptance and recognizing that we're all works in progress. He also reminds us that comparison is the thief of joy, which is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially with the constant stream of curated perfection on social media.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of comparing ourselves to others, but it's a recipe for unhappiness.
Right? He encourages us to focus on our own unique journeys and celebrate our own achievements.
It's about recognizing that we're all on our own paths with our own strengths and challenges, and that true success is about being true to ourselves, not measuring ourselves against some external standard.
Then Forough dives into something that might seem a bit unexpected, the importance of creating. He talks about how creativity is essential for problem-solving, innovation, and even personal fulfillment.
He encourages us to find ways to express ourselves creatively, whether it's through writing music art or even just coming up with new ideas. What are some ways you've incorporated creativity into your own life?
I've been experimenting with different forms of writing, like poetry and short stories, which has been a really fun way to explore different ways of using language and expressing ideas.
What about you?
I've been dabbling in photography, which has been a great way to see the world through a different lens and capture moments of beauty and inspiration.
I love that it's so inspiring to hear about how you're incorporating creativity into your life. Foroux also encourages us to take action even when we don't feel ready. He suggests that we often wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, but that often leads to procrastination and missed opportunities.
He reminds us that action creates clarity, that it's often through doing that we figure out what works and what doesn't.
It's like the idea of ready, fire, aim, which might seem counterintuitive, but I can see how it could be a powerful approach to overcoming fear and inertia.
It's about embracing the idea of iteration of learning and adapting along the way.
And finally, Foroux reminds us that the journey is the destination.
It's about finding joy in the process, in the daily pursuit of our goals, rather than solely focusing on the end result. It's about savoring the present moment, appreciating the small wins along the way, and recognizing that the journey itself is where the real growth and transformation happen. I think this deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've explored so many practical strategies for overcoming procrastination, enhancing focus, and ultimately creating a more fulfilling and productive life.
It's a reminder that we have the power to choose where we direct our attention, how we manage our time, and what we prioritize. But I think it's also a reminder that the journey to self-mastery is ongoing.
It's about continuous learning, growth, and refinement. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question, inspired by Darius Foroux's work. What one small step can you take today to move closer to the life you want to create? It might be setting aside 30 minutes for focused work, turning off notifications on your phone, or simply taking a few moments to reflect on what truly matters to you.
Remember, even small, consistent actions repeated over time can lead to extraordinary results.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found these insights as valuable as we did. Until next time.